phone.
गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गणेश शॉट. गणेश शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है. Today we're going to analyze the defense budget. Well, we all know कि कल की बात है. The defense budget the union budget was announced. A lot of discussion on that, and we didn't see much of what was there in the defense budget except some headline figures were given. And unfortunately for us, this has been a trend. Earlier, the defense budget used to at least tell, the budget used to tell where the defense was heading. This time, that's not there. It's not only this time, for the past 3-4 years, this government has made it a point not to put out some P's and Q's of the defense budget. And that worried me even last year and the year before that. And if anything, it's even more marked. But let's get to the nitty-gritty of the whole story and to see where this thing is going. Right. First, let's get the headline figures. These are the major macro figures which have been put. This was compiled in Bharat Shakti, so I just lifted it off and put it because this is there everywhere else. But I thought Brigadier Chatterjee had, made a beautiful way of putting it, very neatly compiled. So let's go over the headline figures, then I'll talk of the intricacies, right? Now, defense as a whole, MOD has been given 6.22 lakh crores. This is marginally more than the 6.21 crores given during the interim budget in February. Now, 1.72 lakhs allocated for capital acquisition. That's about 20-odd%, a little less than 20%, but I'll come to those figures later. 92, thousand crores, almost a lakh crores for sustenance and operational readiness. That is normally known as the revenue budget. 6,500 crores allocated for border roads and 7,600 for coastal security. I think these were good features of the budget. I'll talk of it later. Budget allocation for IDEX enhanced to 518 crores. I think it's a pittance for what you want the IDEX to do. And I think the IDEX is still an underperforming entity or a scheme. Defense pension budget increased to 1.41 lakh crores. Worrying, we'll talk of it. And 6,700 earmark for ECHS. Well, that's a necessity. If you don't do that, how are you going to treat veterans? And they're at misery because most of the recognized government hospitals are opting out of the ECHS system. So where does this go? Out of the total budget allocation. So this is where it is. 27% gone for capital expenditure, 14% about 15% for revenue expenditure, 4% for civil organizations under MOD, various. And then you come to the mega things, 53% for pay allowances and pensions, manpower. So that's huge. How to reduce this is the million-dollar question. Because if you are able to reduce this, then things will start looking ahead. But let me give a outline analysis at this stage of this issue. Everyone said when Atmanirbhar comes, this defense budget goes down. And I said it will not go down. I wrote about this. And people said I'm a fool. Well, it's there. The pension bill and the pay and allowance has gone up. Over and above that, the finance minister has allocated 6,000 crores for Agniveer. So overall, it's actually gone up. So the fact that the Agniveer system is a I think it's a failure, and it needs a the current system is a failure, and it needs a major rejig. Even the budget says so. If you don't listen to that, well, all the best, right? Uh, so okay, let's get ahead. I'll not comment beforehand. Yeah, the next important thing, which actually perplexes me, 6.22 crore. This is from the PIB. Yeah? This tweet is from PIB. 6.22 crore allocated, lakh 22 crore, right? 6.22 lakh crores allocated to MOD, highest amongst ministries. This is a good part in the regular union budget 24-25. It is 4.79 higher than the financial year 23-24. The rest is all immaterial. Look at this. And this is again where I have a problem with this defense budget. You're growing at the rate of 6 to 7%. And your defense budget is growing at the rate of 4%, 5%. So is there a parity? Your defense budget is not even growing at the rate at which your economy is growing. So obviously, the share of the GDP to the defense budget has to reduce. It's a basic fundamental. You don't need to be Einstein to know about this. And that's what it is. I'll come a little later on the graphs which I have been able to get hold of. Okay. Then let's look at the next issue. What are the major highlights? I'll enlarge the slide so that all of you can have a look and not my face. Yeah. Now the highlights are the military modernization budget for all services is 1.72 lakh crores, which I've said. So it's a hike of 6% only from 1.62 lakhs of the previous budget. So even the capital allocation or modernization allocation has not crossed the GDP growth rates. So actually, in real terms, it is lesser. And if you take the depreciation, rupee depreciation, it is even worse. Then the revised estimates of the capital budget is 1.57 lakhs, which is lower than the 1.62 allocated of that fiscal. This is very interesting. When you say that fiscal, in the last fiscal, okay, in the last fiscal, 1.62 lakhs was allocated in the budget, but the actual expenditure is 1.57 lakh crores. So 0.05 lakh crores or nearly 5,000 crores, you underspent. That it indicates that our procurement system, this is important. Let me come face to face with all of you. If in a budget you've been allocated X and you've not been able to spend that X, that too on capital allocation, on military modernization, there's something wrong internally with the MOD that you're not able to spend, or your planning is poor, or all of the above. Or this money has been finally taken off and given somewhere else. Possible, our Ministry of Finance does it. And after undercutting in the previous year, and you only raised 6%, you're not even compensated for what you couldn't achieve last year. So there's a problem in this defense budget. Let me put it up front. I'm not happy with it at all. And I'm not happy with it because of fundamental reasons. It's not political. It's not for a party or another party. Basically, the Ganit is wrong. The mathematics are wrong. Absolutely. Absolutely wrong. I have no doubt in saying you can quote me anywhere you want. Okay. Limited hike in the capital budget due to fewer contracts signed by the armed forces and certain slippages in scheduled payments and deliveries. This has come out in, I think, either Economic Times or Times of India. I picked it up from there and put it because I didn't have the time to do all that. So I scanned the papers today with my knowledge. I picked up the important points and put it here. Right. Government has not listed out the expenditure plan for the defense capital budget. Again, this is some, I think, mint, if I'm not mistaken. Now, this is a major issue that you're going to spend so much, right? It's supposed to be the highest expenditure of the union government. And the fundamentals of this expenditure are not spelled out by the union budget. And this is something which is, very peculiar to the Indian system, that the budget carries a lot of importance. In other economies and other countries, the budget is just allocation. The main policies come out of the people who are given the money. Not in our case. In our case, everything is, the budget. The budget is the one which sets the tone. And in this, the government has not listed out the expenditure plan. Okay, now let's look at the revenue expenditure. Revenue budget for defense, which includes pay and allowances for the armed forces, allocation for fuel, ammunition, and maintenance of assets, critical space, and other capabilities, saw a rise of 2.82 lakh crores from 2.7 crores in the previous fiscal. This is the budget which makes the forces run on a day-to-day basis. And that's also got a very marginal jump. Now, 30% hike in the budget of Border Roads Organization, I think very good. Then your infrastructure along the border will go up, your infrastructure in Andaman will go up, your airfields will go up, and whole lot of things, which is very good, which I think we have been able to sustain. This gives a great fillip to our ability to react on the border and also in Andaman and in new capabilities which you're building. The whole thing is not there, but 30% hike in BRO thing is very good. I only hope they are able to spend it and finish it off. But my guess is this is one thing which is going on well in India, and no one will give 30% hike in budget unless there is very clear-headedness and clarity that that money will be spent and schemes are at the stage where this money will push them forward, which is good. I'm glad. Then the allocation to Coast Guard is also higher. It's about 6% higher. Even if it's 6% higher, I'm happy that Coast Guard has got more money because it strengthens your security. Your first layer of security is the Coast Guard, your coastal security, which is very good. Okay. Next, here comes the problem. Overall allocation is below 2% of India's GDP. This is a problem area. We have gone back to old days. Not even old days. We have gone back prehistoric days. Again, repeatedly, you are at below 2% of the GDP. How does this affect us? I'll explain because I've done a comparative analysis of what we are spending and what other countries are spending. And what's going to be the impact of this? Because you're going to again spend less and you will banking on Atmanirbhar. There are larger strategic implications of this. Somewhere, I think we are missing the bus. Indian Armed Forces will spend approximately 130 billion on capital procurement over the next 5 to 6 years. So this is also something which you have to understand. The capital procurement will continue to be a lot of money is still going to be spent on import. It's not only import; it's also committed liabilities. You got an item already for which you're paying over a period of time, right? In installments. That's the normal way of spending. So that will take time. So for that to get liquidated next to 5 6 years, plus certain items we will have to import whether you like it or not. Right? Maybe not big ticket items, but there are items which you will import. For example, the S400, we have not got the full delivery from Russia. So our payment will continue only after the delivery is achieved. So this is going to take time. And so whenever we talk of Atmanirbharta and all that those things, keep this in mind that you have it's almost a committed liability, right? You are committed to spending 130 billion in the next 5 to 6 years. That's about over $20 billion annually, and you cannot get away from it. And to that extent, it's going to affect your Atmanirbharta and it's going to affect your indigenization and all that. But it will not stop modernization because that's what you're spending it for. And why are you for being forced to import? This gives you a hard reality. The hard reality is that, notwithstanding everything, our DRDO plus PSUs plus private industry cannot deliver in the next 5 to 6 years. This is saying a lot. This giving you a overall mega picture that look, our technology is not strong. Our fundamentals are not strong. If your fundamentals are not strong, you're going to pay for it big time because China, as you know, it just finished its third plenum. Whatever the other issues are, they are looking at something like 29% more on science and technology allocations. They want to be a technology and science superpower, and that whatever they're going to achieve in the civil field through civil military fusion is going to get seep down to the armed forces. So you're looking at this technology gap going up over the next few years. That's concerning. That's why I keep saying, look, whatever you other issues are, we have a problem with this part of the story. Science, technology, and the gap between us and China, us and Western world. There are a lot of implications of this, right? I will talk of it. Okay, I found this very interesting article. This was there, but I didn't discuss it earlier because this was based on the interim budget. ORF ka hai by Lakshman Behra, who does this very well, incidentally. So I went back, saw this, and I said, look, it's almost the same. So let me discuss what he has written. Because the allocation from the allocation is 6.22 lakh crores. The interim budget gave 6.21 lakh crores. So marginal, very marginal difference between the interim budget and this budget. So these figures are important. I don't think any other website has brought it out. So if you want to let everyone know about the actualities, the flesh and bones of our defense budget, tell them to come to Gunner Shot. And you like this, do press the bell button. And if you're seeing it for the first time, you will get something different. So come to Gunner Shot. Okay. What does it say? Look, these are the modernization of the defense budget, right? He's taken it from 23-24 base, budget estimates. B is budget estimate. That's the first column. Revised estimates. Then the budget estimates and in percentage increase. If you look at the modernization package of that 1.72 lakh crores, so right, so this is what it is, right? You look at it. The stress is on aircraft and aero engines. Great, but this is based on the previous thing. Not much will change. That's why I said the central government for some reason has not put it out, but there it's in the union. The budget full details will have it. Now it's up to people like me and you to take interest in it and propagate it, and that's what I'm doing. So if you look at it, 44.5% increase for aero engines, 2.5 for heavy and medium vehicles. That means that this increase largely would go for Zorawar light tanks. That's my guess. Now, it's gone down. You see Major increase for Rashtra rifles you had to because earlier you had cut it out. Right, the rest are all decreasing. Your naval dockyard projects 1.6% increase. You need to do more. Look at what's happened to Brahmaputra. Brahmaputra is a case where your naval dockyard has malfunctioned. It is not because of any other thing. When there are technical reasons, but fundamentally there's a problem in the naval dockyards because naval dockyard mishaps are quite a few in our country. Unless you modernize your naval dockyard, it will go nowhere. So this is your modernization budget. Now look at this. This gives you the projection versus allocation. The blue bar is the projection, and the yellow or the ochre bar, orange bar is the allocation, right? So, I mean, understandably, we have fallen short of the projection versus the allocation, right? Consistently from 2018 to now. That's the best. The good part in this, which is the only glimmer, is if you see the rightmost, what we have projected, what the MOD has projected now, the government has given it almost only a 7.2% cut, as against 23 and 23% cut and 20% cuts, the earlier ones. That means you projected something, got much less. Okay. So yeah, that's there, but over consistently, the armed forces have not been given what they've bid for. So over a period of time, if you see, this is going to be accumulated. It's like compounding your problem, and you can never get out of it. And we're going to get bad on this. Let me be upfront. Just because I support my country doesn't mean I don't face the reality of what's happening. The reality is this. Okay, what's the next one? Look at this. Okay, what is the MOD expenditure and what is the growth in the MOD expenditure year to year? Year on year, what is the growth pattern? So this is it. Again, you see the growth is going down. This is bad. Compared to last year, where have you grown? That's the issue. You're not grown. Our budgets are not growing consistently. They're going sporadically. Right? And that concerns us. That should be a major concern to all of us. But the worst is a little ahead. What is the worst? Look at this. This is horrible. What is this? This is the budget. Yeah. Yeah. This is the GDP versus as a percent, or rather your defense budget as a percentage of the GDP. Look at the blue line. This is the budget allocated to the defense, 1.39. Your lesser. And 1.90 if you take civilians, pay, everything complete. The defense, that is what has been given. So this year you're at 1.9% of the defense budget, the macro budget. But as far as the MOD, what will get, the MOD will get is 1.39%. Consistently decreasing. And right from 2015, we are consistently decreasing. Except for a hike around 2020-21. That was when Eastern Ladakh happened. A small hike took place, again you're gone down. So if your defense allocation is going to be lesser than 2%, mind you, the MOD defense, the MOD expenditure is the baseline figure. Right? Expenditure, right. And that is the overall what comes out in the thing. You see it's going down. And if with this kind of a expenditure, you're going nowhere. And if you look at the macro issues of what the defense services, Army, Navy, Air Force have got, is even pathetic. I would say only pathetic, because the allocations are continuously decreasing. Right? And the gap between what is being allotted to the MOD and what comes down to the defense services, this gap is constantly increasing, or rather almost constant. So unless these macro issues are not addressed, we're going to have a problem, because you're not going to get the capabilities which we say, oh, we need third aircraft carrier, you need 40 squadrons of fighter aircraft, you need tanks, you need more artillery guns. Well, you have to budget for it. If you don't budget for it, you don't get it. For the past 10 years, we have not been budgeting. Is there a reason for change? Well, we'll look at it. What's going to be the implications? I have not finished with it as it. Okay. This is a poor trend line. Let's not have any doubt about it. And we should acknowledge the fact that somewhere we are missing the bus. Okay. What are the issues? The first issue is your time-bound planning and procurement is not streamlined as it. I said so. In the last year, you had to surrender what was allocated to you. This year, you've not been allocated what was surrendered, and that's also not been compensated. Actually, probably if you see what you got last year is what you got this year. That's it. And it also reflects on your procurement processes. It also reflects on your delays. It also reflects on the bureaucracy of the system. I'm talking of the system, not just the MOD, it's the MOD and the defense services. Somewhere we are going wrong. And I hope the CDS sits and talks. It's one thing to say we can defeat China and Pakistan, but you need defense reforms. That's the second point. Where defense reforms is the meat of the thing. There's no point in having a defense acquisition procedure reviewed, A, B, C, more rules brought in, no corruption, this, that, sewn up procedures. But you need to enable procurement, and that's not been done. Defense reforms need to enable procurement. Defense reforms need to enable better planning. Defense reforms need to enable better capability building. I am afraid, if you see this budget and go back over this thing, we have, what shall I say? I'm disappointed. That's the way I put it. We have stagnated. Reduction of pension liability. Unless you reduce that pension liability, where are you going? 55% or 53% is only pensions. So the first part is defense civilian manpower cut. Everyone thinks the armed forces pension bill is more. You'll be surprised. The defense of civilians pension bill is equal. How do you cut that? See, it's very fundamental. Armed forces personnel, he goes after 15 years, 20 years. His pension is much less. The pension outgo is much less. But this, civilians who are paid out of defense estimates, he serves till 60. So when he retires, he's retiring at the highest pension rate. If anything, you need a Agnipath scheme for them. You have to reduce, or can you outsource? That's not happening. Why don't you? Is the reform of the DRDO, does it cater for this? Did the reform of the OFB cater for this? It's not. So it comes back to defense reforms connected with, you have to reduce. I didn't see anywhere, whether it was for the OFB or in the DRDO case, please cut, the overall civilian manpower. Even the people who are employed in the defense ministry and civilians in the defense ministry and service headquarters, you need to prune them down. Then what stops the government from sidestepping a person from regular service into PMF or government departments or PSUs or police forces or private sector, prior to pension liability being achieved? The chap who's got 12 years service, give him the option. You can go apply. These are the places where you can apply. If you get it, good luck, go. We'll recruit more youngsters. You don't get pension. Your pension, if you go to government agencies, they will give you the pension. Otherwise, go to the private sector, earn more. Why did you think like that? You want to think at Agnipath level 4 years without training him, right? And then, of course, the Agnipath has not been reformed. Everyone now knows that is a heavily flawed scheme. It has, look, this defense budget has ensured that, or rather, revealed to you very clearly that the uh, it is not going to reduce your pension bill. If it reduces the pension bill, it will be after 20 years or 15 years or whenever. Operationally, it is not good. It does not meet the aspirations of the people. It does not do many things. So why are you keeping it? You modify it with the aim of the next one, reduction of pension liability. That's it comes to the same thing as what I had suggested, some kind of a graded exit scheme. Then you'll reduce, right? And this is something which I somehow fail to understand why this is not being done. Basic common sense. Then you need a defense export policy, which has not been spoken of in this budget. Look, everyone says defense export, defense export, defense export. Defense exports we know has multiple effects. It gives you money, it gives you dependency, it gives you strategic payoffs in especially in your neighborhood. It establishes you as a power, a military power, growing military power. All these things, but yet you don't have a policy. What are your major defense exports? Some to Armenia and some to Philippines, major items. Why don't you export to Bangladesh? Why don't we export to Sri Lanka? Why don't we export to Nepal, Bhutan? These are the countries which need. Why don't we export to places like Indonesia? Why don't we export to Middle East? Why don't we export to Israel? Why don't we export to Russia itself? And Ukraine? How are we said, okay, you don't want to give it to Russia, but definitely to the others. So, and Latin America, it's lying vacant. So, unless you think of this and budget for it, because you get money out of defense export, it's going to fund your other items. Okay, it doesn't fund other items. At least it'll fund your government. I mean, and I would have liked capability development highlights to have figured in the budget, which they have not. What am I going to get? What are we going to get as a nation? Forget me. I am at least the informed person of this budget business. What about the common people? Why everyone will ask, we are giving 6.2 lakh crores for the defense. It's a white elephant. What is this white elephant going to give me? That's the common question which everyone asks. Is there any interministerial planning for space and nuclear capabilities? I didn't see that. In every other country, this is followed. Why not in our country? I don't understand. Okay. So these are the problems which these are the mind you, this is just one day's observation of mine. Yeah. As time goes, more problems will come up. Everyone says you want a light tank to defeat the Chinese tank. Okay, the Chinese that Zoravar is getting ready. It's ready. You also showcased it. It's figured in South China Morning Post already. Right? They're worried. But they also say it will get delayed. They also say. Why? One is budget, second is your trials will take 20 years more. So there's a problem which we have to understand in our whole story. Okay, now let's see something else comparison. Where do we stand in comparison to the other countries? That's the interesting part. Okay, now look at it. China has increased defense budget by 7.2% last year. We spoke of it. And that year, over the last year, it was 6%. So 22, it was 6%, 23, sorry, 21 to 22, it increased 6%. 22 to 23, it has increased 7%. So effectively 13% increase over the few years. And actually, if you look at it over compounded over a few more years, it's doubled faster than you can imagine. And China has increased its defense budget for 9 consecutive years since 2015, despite a slowdown. Their economy is slowing down, but they're increasing their defense budget. Our economy is going up and you're decreasing the defense budget. Ye kya hai bhai? What kind of a regional power are we going to become? Something to think of. And incidentally, this is the 29th year on year rise in China's military expenditure. This is all from CIPRI. For 29 years, their defense expenditure has been increasing. Let's look at Pakistan. Pakistan, we say, doesn't have money, economy dubra, all that nonsense. This defense budget last year has increased 17.6%. It's the second largest increase in 6 years. And every year this is repeating. I keep saying, in Pakistan, Pakistan might be poor. Pakistan people might not have food to eat. Pakistan will be in a debt trap, everything. But their army will always have money for their defense. Now, Don, what does Don say? Major military acquisitions and funding for nuclear weapons and missile programs are to be financed through separate channels, hidden under a classified budget line. That has not appeared in the Pakistan's budget. So if you add that, it will be something like 24-25% increase. So you look at what we have done with our neighbors. Are you keeping up with the neighbors? And we are supposed to be living in some of the most dangerous environment. Is it so with this kind of a budget? Okay, let's go further. We have to understand it. Look at the global averages. Your global military expenditure on an average last year went up by 2.2 to 2.3% of GDP. From 2.2% to 2.3% globally, it has gone up. US from 2 plus, it has gone down. So you are going against the global average. The big countries, big powers are spending more on defense. India is the only big power which is spending less on defense. And this is figured in CIPRI also. Look at Japan. Japan allocated 50 billion in 2023. It was 11% more than in 2022. Year on year, their increase is highest since 1972. Taiwan. Their military expenditure grew by 11% in 23. South Korea also has increased its expenditure by 1.1%. All China's neighbors have linked their spending increases to China's rising military expenditure, including Philippines, Vietnam, and Brunei and Indonesia and everyone. I mean, in effect, all countries which are affected by China's military rise are spending more for their defense. India is the only country which has a major problem with China, is reducing its defense expenditure as a percentage of its GDP. No, what more can I say? These are hard figures. This is not, and if you don't consider these hard figures, and if you chaps don't send it to others, all the best. All the best to all of us. And this is what our government is doing. They want to give to, look, I am not against other development. Must be given. But this is nowhere near reality. It's a time where there are global wars. You are committed in Arabian Sea for doing, anti-piracy operations. Ukraine war is raging. West Asia is in flames. Indo-Pacific is going up with Philippines and Taiwan. One Japanese newspaper says China can attack Taiwan in a week. One other chap says, I'm going to go into Philippines. If all that happens, you're affected and you're not prepared for it. You're not being prepared for it. Macro issues. So your macro planning is poor. Okay, let's look at NATO. NATO target is 2.2% of GDP. USA has always been telling all NATO countries, every NATO country must spend 2%. In Europe, in the past 2 years, they've all jacked up their expenditure. They all jacked up their expenditure to over 2%. Now, most of the European NATO countries feel 2% is their baseline, not a threshold to achieve. It is their baseline. What more can we spend over 2% because of the Ukraine and Russia threat? 11 out of 31 NATO countries have met or surpassed this level in 2023. It's the highest number since the commitment was made. Another target of this is directing at least 20% of military spending to equipment spending. So if your budget is X 2%, 20% of that has to go to equipment so that your capability increases. And this was met by 28 of the 31 NATO countries. So people are spending on equipment, people are spending more, and this has got a ripple effect. I'll just come to it. Okay, the questions which I have, and I don't have answers. Is this budget consistent with the threats? The answer is no. Is the defense budget consistent with our growth as a regional power? Is it consistent with ASEAN and Western Pacific nations' expenditure? No. Is it consistent with NATO expenditure? No. What is the impact on the neighborhood? What? Yeah, look, this budget is going to be seen by everyone. All your neighbors now know you're not going to spend enough on defense. Whom will it affect? What is your standing when people come to know, when Bangladesh tomorrow knows that China is becoming more powerful militarily than India, they will naturally lean to China or Sri Lanka. You think whatever you've done to Sri Lanka will stop doing what it is doing? It will still go to China. You think you'll get Maldives away from China with this kind of a thing? Okay. What is the impact of Atmanirbhar? I mean, we have to understand. There is something. You're going to reduce import expenditure, which is good. I'm damn good. But this import expenditure is going to reduce from where? It's going to reduce from Russia, where we have already reduced defense imports from Russia and USA. So there are implications of this. Understand, it's a backhanded implication. What is the backhanded implication? If you don't, if US economy is not going to be dependent on your defense expenditure, but on NATO expenditure, which is the case actually, they're not interested in your partnership. They'll say, okay, when China comes, we'll handle it. So the US defense lobby is getting adequate orders because 20% is their equipment spending. Most of their equipment is for NATO standard. Most of the NATO standard is USA or France. There are no other major producers. So France and USA are anyway getting richer because of their economy is getting a boost because of NATO. Plus the fact that the Western Pacific countries like Japan, South Korea are also increasing their expenditure. They're all getting US arms. So the US defense industry base is chugging along. Their economy is doing well. Not yours. And you are not going to contribute for their economy. If you are not going to contribute for their economy and you are reducing your they are not, Why will they be strategic partners to you? If they're not going to be strategic partners to you, you have to rely on yourself. So you have to go more focus on Atmanirbhar, more on defense expenditure for yourself. Are you doing it? Actually, this budget has put us in a catch-22 situation. Same thing with Russia. If you're going to reduce imports from Russia, one day he'll stabilize. In the international market, will say, okay, open up Russia's oil. On that day, he'll not be dependent on oil sales to you. In which case, your strategic equation with Russia will also undergo a change. Whether you like it or not, Russia has its own marbles. Take care. It'll take care. USA is not no more looking at you as a major defense partner for expenditure. If both these things put to combine, your clout will reduce unless your Atmanirbharta goes up. Atmanirbharta and everything will go up only if you invest more in technology, more in research, more in actual spending and all that. That you need defense, you need budget. The budget is not there. All the best. Yeah. So, look, normally I don't come out with such strong, thing. But the fact is, we need to, face reality, right? You need to face reality. The reality is, this budget is not what India needs. This defense budget does not meet India's aspirations. Discuss it. Okay. Now let's take the questions. Right. Thanks a lot for your contribution. And also, Siddharth, thanks a lot for your super sticker. Honored. I will only request once again that, yeah, I would request more of you, if you like this video, if you like my presentation and analysis, and this is common, request more to join Gunner Shot, become members, contribute, because it's all for a noble cause. Right. So let me take on. Yeah. Neerajak, thanks. Welcome home. Yeah, great. It's always good to be home. Shruti, namaskar. And then Akash, Jai Hind. Thank you. Okay. One gripe we soldiers have is that a good chunk of pension and salaries is for the civilian employees. Whilst true, they are also important to run. System, is there any solution for this issue? Yeah, outsource. There are a lot of jobs which you can outsource. Outsource it so that your pension bill goes, your establishment bill goes down. You pay for the services and get going. A lot of services. Then, like what they did to OFB, make them as profit centers, tell them to earn money for you. Only then, there are methods. But are we establishing it? Are we doing it? I don't know. I don't think so. In 6 months, the budget will be revisited. What signs should the government see to increase defense expenditure? Aren't attack? Look, Jack, this budget has been revisited already. February to now, it has been revisited. You think there's something great going to happen in the balance of this year by this government? Yeah, I don't think so. Right? Do you need more analysis, fundamental analysis to say that this is not enough? Right? So I don't think the government needs to see any sign. The government has to take responsibility. I think they're not taking responsibility for what we want to be. Or don't say, yeah, take a sit on my borders and be happy. I will also sit there and make faces at you, and that's it. Then forget being a regional power. That you can't do. Right? China, ye kar raha, wo kar raha. I'll keep analyzing China. That's my job. But at the end of the day, I will always remind, yaar, ye kuch ho nahi raha. We will have to revamp our depleting MiG-21 squadrons. We may have to replenish by 4.5 gen and 5 gen multi-role fighters, and wonder whether these allocations are no, they're not. I've told you. I'm very clear. They're not. Forget all this. These are all dreams. Siddharth, let me be very honest. We are dreaming. If you think you're going to get fifth generation fighters and all, you're dreaming. Yup. Neither your budget nor your procurement procedure is geared for it. Also, your Atmanirbhar is not paying off. So let's face reality. Reality is no. Okay. Does late delivery or unavailability of certain equipment affect funding allocation or grade past it is in any way? Asking as stages is heavily, yeah, it'll affect. But look, you see, every service has enough uh, schemes. If one doesn't go, you spend somewhere else. If that doesn't go, you build infrastructure. Infrastructure is for a long time. So you give more in infrastructure so that infrastructure comes up. Not only BRO. What about your airfield? What about your other infrastructure? Get them up. Okay. So a lot of things can be done, but unfortunately, it's not been done. That's my problem. It's a common view and sense that top crop of boys will now head for CAPFs where they can serve 58 years instead of army. How do we ensure the best men come into forces instead of CAPFs? You have to amend the Agnimir scheme. There is no choice. There's no other choice. You have to modify the Agnimir scheme to make it work for the nation. It should not work for the army. It should not work for the CAPFs. It should work for the nation. It should not work for the civilians. It should not work for the politicians. It should work for the nation. So far, no. Okay. Now, Aju says 4.7% of 47 goes to payment of salaries and pension of civilian staff. My issue here is the benefits of military subsidies go into army. Civilians should go only to soldiers. This is one of the things. Okay, this is minor. But first, you don't need so many civilians. That's the point. Do you not think the budget should be 100 billion USD? We have the potential. Look at it this way: 60 to 70 is what you're spending. It's a huge increase you are thinking of. This is a huge increase is something this government is never going to give you. This is a government. Look, if someone asks me, very honestly, if someone asks me, why will you not vote for this government again? I will say because their concept of security is warped and I'll not vote for them. Right? You fund the defense, spend in defense potential, creating defense potential, infrastructure. You spend for modernization, Atmanirbhar. It has a seep down effect. The same seep down effect as you make infrastructure outside. And then it enables you to export. So why are we not thinking holistically like that is something which defeats my thinking. I'm not happy at all with this. Because defense is a strategic necessity, it's a strategic investment, which gives you strategic payoffs and fiscal payoffs. We are not thinking of it. Yeah, 47%. Yeah, this is fine. This is what is there in the union budget. The budget is put out in a book that these are figures from that. So there's right. Do you think DRDO spending is sufficient for R&D? More than sufficient because they're not giving results even what they spent. That's why I said, what is your criticality of spending? What are the focus areas? That's not come out. If that has not come out in the defense budget, or rather in the union budget, it has not come out in the defense budget also, which means that your whole story is suspect. That's the problem. Was wondering with the current allocation, where are we heading in space, quantum, and cyber areas? Nowhere. You're going to be marginally increasing everything. It's not. It's not a good condition. It's not a good condition at all. I'm being upright about it. Right? Yeah, I see more. Lalit, thanks a lot. I've been, seeing all the forwards. Very nice. Uh, yeah, Shastri says money is there, but capacity to spend the money is lacking. Procurement needs serious reforms. What reforms do you recommend? Oh, there are a hell of a lot of reforms. There are a lot of reforms which you need to do. One is you have to put time on each reform, right? Then you need to monitor all your cases, right? You have to monitor all your cases. Uh, that's very important. You need a defense advisory board. You need to have the capability to carry out all the trials and expenditure. For example, let me put it this way. Um, you need high altitude ranges, which we don't have for our long range vectors. If you have them, you are able to, test all the equipment out. Your testing facilities, your certification facilities, all these need an upgradation. The beauty is 4 years back there was a major, seminar which I addressed these issues, in which the Prime Minister came and gave the opening address. This was during the COVID time, and all these issues were supposed to deemed to be priority issues, and nothing has happened, or nothing significant has happened. There are a lot of things, procurement procedures, right? Stop, creating more procedures. Use the existing procedures to take it forward. Get expertise into the procurement procedure. I think, I'm not saying me, I don't want to do that. But people there are qualified guys, experts who have proven capability in defense procurement. Use them. There are people like me, many more of them. I'm anyway in part of the loop at this point of time through IIT. So there are so many reforms you can do, practical reforms. You need to give continuity to people who are doing reform or procurement. I think we are missing the bus badly. Okay. Yeah. Do our armed force chiefs or CDS have any say in defense budget allocation? At least they can make a formal request. Well, they should. I don't know whether anyone's considering them. I don't think so. Right. Is it unfair in the current scenario to compare our defense budget with the CCP, PLA? Is there any data to understand how much they really spend if you take out corruption? Pata, all this is thinking the wrong way. Okay. Let's be very clear. Even if you take out 20% of theirs, 20% for corruption and all, they are still 200 plus. That's even double. Right now, they triple your defense expenditure. Okay. So you have to realize that you have a major problem. Forget about looking at CCP from that point of view. Yeah, the bureaucracy has the political executive presently in government well under control. It would not be surprising if more unsustainable schemes are implemented. Your views, that's my worry. Look, to give credence to the bureaucracy, they're not all bad guys. They know how to do things, but they see bad intent. Okay, and that intent comes from uh, political intent, because politically you don't want to spend on defense because defense doesn't give you votes. Okay, when something happens on the border, like Uri happens or Pulwama happens or Eastern Ladakh happens, suddenly everyone jumps up and says, "Itne de rahe hain paisa, itna de rahe hain paisa." That doesn't prevent, uh, right, the incident from happening. If you're going to give money after the incident happens, then you're, bolting the stable after the horses left, or rather, closing the stable after the horses left. That is useless. We have to pay. We have to fund the defense so that the nation can grow. This the nation wants to grow without funding the defense. This is no thing. I mean, this is my biggest problem. Defense expenditure enables the nation to grow. In our nation, it's been my constant observation that the nation grows and the defense expenditure is left behind. That puts all of us at danger. And then when an incident happens, we spend. But that is, like I said, bolting the stable after the horse is gone. I think we have to rethink our defense expenditure and everything. Defense needs to be a strategic investment where that strategic investment has payoffs. It has got civilian payoffs and it has got economic payoffs even in the current fiscal. Brings me down to the fact that you need certain amount of civil military fusion. Let's see where it goes. Basic question: does GOI decide budget first and then armed forces decide how to defend the country based on that budget? Or the threat assessment is done first and the budget is decided? What you're saying, Maximilian, is fundamental. You first assess the threat and then see what capabilities you want, and then you have budget for it. And say, okay, I can't budget it now, I know it, I'll budget it for next year. And you do prioritization and all. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. Let me be honest. We are doing exactly probably the opposite way. Budget, yeah, we will give so much for the armed forces, defend. Okay, objective review of defense budget shows Modi government is using defense force to build a strongman image, but getting it in the meantime. I wouldn't call it a sham because this budget will give you certain capability. It gives you enough defensive capability. Let me be very honest. There's no problem. It gives you adequate defensive capabilities. It doesn't propel you to be to a regional power. So let's not aim high. Non-violent, underprepared, and understaffed. Yeah, we can say that too. Yes. I am very happy that our defense budget has increased by $75 billion. It will require. I don't think you're right. Anyway. Why does India punch so far below its weight on defense exports? In US, they are both born with guns and push their production government. We need to coddle and handhold any productions. Why? I don't know. Ask the government. You people are the people. Our politicians lack the fundamentals. We are more interested in being power in votes. Percentage doesn't give the thing, absolute figures. Aju, I think you don't understand what I've spoken. That's about all. Good general freebies रहेगा तब तक cutting रहेगा defense and other things. I agree. Another disappointment in first 100 days. I agree with you. Excellently analyzed. That's what it is. I mean, it's not excellently analyzed. It's a reality. You have to live in reality. Okay. Buy the best weapons on the grey market. There's no grey market in defense forces. Will the defense budget not lapse every year as part of the new policy? How would that help? If you don't have defense budget, if your defense budget lapses, okay, let's say you want to buy a gun, it's for 100 rupees. Okay, you want to buy X number of guns for 100 rupees. By the end of the year, for many reasons, you could buy only minus one for 100 rupees. You're short of one, and you're not spent 100 rupees. If that is not allowed to roll over, you'll not get that one. So this one which you procured short this year will roll over into next year's budget. So you have to start from zero there. You should have certain non-lapsable funds, which is something which Bipin Rawat used to speak of. I don't know what's happened after that. Harshal, good evening. How are you? I'm fine. Thanks a lot. Oh, do you think there's some sort of signaling going around by India not increasing defense budget dramatically? Too early to say, but I'll talk of it later. There are some indications, uh, which is dicey. In my view, it's very dicey. Uh, uh, I think Economist came out with an article a few days back where saying India and China are trying to mend their equations. And if India is trying to buy China off by underspending on defense and increasing the economic thing, then I think we are in for trouble. I'll talk of it later. How will the MOD integrate academia, government, and manufacturing? Ask them. They're not doing it. Government plans to allow. Yeah, this is what I was talking of. If you're cutting you are allowing them to invest in you with the hope that they'll not trouble you militarily, and you're cutting your defense expenditure. Whereas on ground, it's exactly the opposite. So we are playing with fire. Let's be very frank. A sobering take on defense budget. Are there any aspects in which this budget meets your expectations? Look, one expectation is your border infrastructure is developing at pace. There's some focus on coastal defense. Both these are good. I'm happy. Uh, Look, the budget also meets your basic requirements for defense, but just about. That's about all. Otherwise, I'm disappointed in the budget. We will be a $7 trillion economy. So, what is the prediction of the? I'll not answer this question. I think government is calculating the fact that if conflict occurs with China, NATO, and Pacific countries also will take advantage of such situation, which will stretch the Chinese forces. I doubt that may. It will not happen. Especially because USA is no more interested in USA's defense industrial base has got enough money through NATO and Western Pacific countries. You everything money speaks. Huh? We are not, unfortunately our money also is speaking. Or lack of money is also speaking. Yeah, I think we have done for the lot for all your contributions. I'm grateful. Right. If you have liked this presentation, press that bell button. And if you are coming to the Ghana shot for the first time, subscribe. Uh, and you'll get different views. I'll be happy to learn from all of you your views on the presentation I give. As you see, I look forward to your comments in the presentation. Thank you, good evening, and Jai Hind.